Today I'm going to be doing another collage. Last week I made this cute little Pokemon Mew collage, and I think it turned out pretty well. I still need to quilt the background and trim it up and finish it, and then I can give it to my youngest daughter. My oldest daughter has a favorite Pokemon character as well, and her favorite Pokemon character is Piplup. This is a picture of Piplup that I found where it's the outline. Apparently this is a somewhat common pose that I could see of Piplup when I was doing a search on the internet for doing image search. Piplup has got more colors than Mew. Mew is mostly like a light pink character. Piplup has a kind of a dark blue on sort of that, I guess this would be like a cowl or something. And then I noticed that the tail feathers were dark blue. And then this big body area with the wings there, that's more of a light blue. And then the feet are kind of a golden yellow, and the beak's kind of a golden yellow. I think the eyes were more of a black eye. I liked the little thing where it was kind of like this little half ellipse for the eyes that is probably showing that the character is happy. So I decided to pick this particular thing, and for that I will be stitching. In planning this out, I have this other copy here. I've written in here that this is light blue, this is light blue, and then this area of the face here is white, and then it's kind of like there's two ellipses that are white. Kind of reminds me of like the buttons on Mickey Mouse's pants. I wonder if that's where they got their inspiration. And then I have it indicated up here dark blue, and then also dark blue on the tail, and yellow on the beak, yellow on the feet. And then I also went ahead and I put in like what the shading would be. So since this is white, the shading on that lower part of the face is probably going to be a really light gray or a light brownish gray, something like that. I'll figure that out. This will be like a darker blue, and then also a darker blue, and then this is light blue, and then it'll just be like a darker shade of the light blue that I'll try to find. And then for the beak and the feet, there's no shading on the beak here, so that's gonna be pretty consistent shade, and then just do stitching there to kind of have that little beak where it separates. On the feet, it's gonna be probably more of like a dark golden yellow for that shading that goes right here, and then also right there where it's kind of like representing it's under the body. And so what I'm going to use this time for my Fusible is I am using this product called WonderUnder. It is a fusible web where on this side of it, it's actually a paper and you can draw on it. And then on this side of it is the fusible part, and you fuse that to the wrong side of the fabric. If you have a design where it has like a right direction to it, then you would have to actually do that design upside down when you go to draw it, because when you peel this off, it's going to actually have that sticky part up. And so like I have a piece where I tested it here, and this is the fusible. It peels up like that, and it's probably hard to see, but I can feel the fusible part of that, which is dry. So if I was using this, then I would just put it wherever I was going to put it on the project and then iron that on. The directions here is that you put the rough side of it against the wrong side of the fabric, and then you press for 5 to 8 seconds with a hot dry iron. Then you'd let it cool and you draw the desired shape. And so in my case, sometimes I find that it's just simpler if I go ahead and I take my piece of paper and I draw like this sort of a thing, which I did previously. So I drew that and then I cut it out, and I actually wanted to cut this out to be bigger than that shape because I want this darker bit to be underneath, so that these bits of fabric on top are actually going to have something to fuse onto. So I have that, and then what I did is I flipped that over with the fabric that I was using, and and this was the fabric here. I flipped it over, I drew it out, and then I cut this out. And this right here will be this kind of little cowl or hood for my little Piplup Pokemon character here. And that's the first part of the collage. So now I'm going to go ahead and spend some time tracing my pieces so that I can cut them out. So I already cut out that hood. I've cut out this little shade here and the little tail bit of shade there. So I have that. And then I am going to trace some more of these pieces. Let's see, I could fit that beak nicely right there. So get that ellipse of that beak. So there we go. Alright, that's the beak. And then I can get the ellipses of white, where it's like, I don't know, a button, something like that. I wonder. Okay, so those aren't the same size. So we'll call this one right and left. There we go. Okay, and I think this I'm just gonna do as like one big piece for that body. I think that'll work pretty well. The nice thing about that is now I have a pretty big area that I can have down here for this collage. Okay, and since we're going to have these pieces on top, I'm gonna just go ahead and extend this out and just kind of do like that, and that way it's just got that extra, because this little dot here is corresponding to the actual pattern there, and I think that looks pretty good. So again, here I'm going to extend this just a little bit, so that's that main piece of the body, and then I think let's go ahead and get the tail. So the tail there, we're gonna put some dashes where that meets up with the body, because just like on the upper part of that main body, I'm going to, and then dash right there, I'm gonna extend that, and that way I have something for that to hold on to. So tail, there we go. I mean, I think it should be pretty obvious to me, but just put that on right there. And then here we go for the feet. And then of course this little stuff here where it's sort of like in between like the toes or something, that'll be stitched. So this is mostly ellipses with this particular collage. This is a character that has a very defined, so this we want it to actually hold to that particular thing. We're not trying to overlap because we're already going to achieve that with that part on the main body. And we have this little spot right here. That is our final spot to trace, and that one is also just going to be, or actually no, that's going to be just under the beak. So I'm gonna go ahead and just scratch that a little bit because I do have enough space. So we're gonna dash it on a little beak there, and then we're just gonna extend that down just a little bit. And that way, I have that like that. And that's like a light blue. I'm just gonna put that down. And then I'll just look at this again. Let's see, so I put the beak there, the tail shade. Okay, got my fabric. And yeah, I did go under that a little bit, so that'll be good. So as for the fabrics that I'm gonna work with, like I said, I needed something that would have dark blue and light blue, or kind of a light to medium blue really. So I have this fabric. I've had this fabric for a very long time, and it's actually got those colors that I think really go well with this. This is where I actually fused a piece there, so I have some more that I can cut there. The great thing about this fabric is we definitely have our dark sections. So that's a nice dark section there. And then this is definitely a very light blue, and then it's just a little bit darker here for kind of like a medium blue, and then right here is just a little bit darker than this medium blue, so it's kind of like a medium dark blue, and that's pretty cool. I also had another option here for a light blue, so I might still kind of think about that if I can't, because I need a spot for the body that's going to be big enough, and I'm kind of looking at this and I'm not sure that I'm going to find something big enough. But what's really cool about this fabric is that you can see all of these flowers on here, but this is a bird that I'm making this collage out of, and so the effect of cutting it out of a fabric, like cutting it out of that section where it was a sunflower in the middle of that, it actually kind of makes it look like feathers. I think this is a really interesting look to it, and it's just one of the things where collage can be kind of taken to an interesting level based on the prints that you're choosing for your project. So what I ended up finding to do like a darker shade for that little bit of the hood that needed to be covered that way, that little bit right here, I found this little piece of fabric here. It reads really dark. It's actually a dark navy. Initially I thought this was a black, but when I put it in the light, it's a very dark navy blue. So on the background, I'm not going to show how I did that because I realized in the middle of making the background that it would actually be a lot easier to make it with paper piecing, and so I would rather save doing something like that on a future project. But I really like how these colors look, and just as kind of a preview with like the hood on that, you could see that character is going to show up really well and is going to stand out, and it's going to look pretty good. So I'm very excited for how this is going to come together. It's almost finished. I just need to add some extra details, like, you know, you can see that I don't have the eyes on there, and then I want to thicken up that outline, because right now that outline is just a single line of straight stitching. But as you can see here, just a note about when things kind of go wrong, and you can see that there's a bleed through of this background fabric that you could see through the white. What I had done on Mew to make that not show through, a little bit of it there too, is I had actually double layered up the light fabric so that I wouldn't have that blue background show. So, you know, sometimes these things happen. I think the recipient here is still going to be pretty happy with it and not really notice it that much. This is something that for a lot of beginning quilters, this can really trip them up and they get discouraged. And, you know, that's the thing. It's like you're not going to be perfect every time. Even the most experienced quilters will make mistakes, and especially in the beginning of a quilting journey, you're definitely not going to be perfect. And so, you know, these are good learning experiences. I was a little concerned about this, but decided to just go ahead with it, and I should have just doubled up on this stuff. And even right here, like, that's not the background. That shadowy part is actually actually this hood fabric peeking in through that white fabric that's on the top. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're doing collage work, is that, you know, you want to be aware of the fabrics that are going to be underneath. You want to be aware of your layers that you're working with. Here's the finished look of the Piplup fabric collage. Little Pokemon critter here. It looks pretty good. This is the outlining I did. I did that free motion on the machine this time instead of doing a satin stitch, and I think it looks pretty good. The little eyes and the beak that had to be entirely done that way, I think they came out really well. And then I have kind of some swirling stitching. It blends in pretty well because the thread that I used is kind of a beige-ish cream color. This is what the back of the piece looks like. You can see that stitching a little bit better than I did. I have the outline on the back in black as well, just because that makes it so that the threads on the top aren't going to have a possibility of the occasional bobbin thread coming up and being a different color and standing out. I do have just a little bit of a pucker right here, which ordinarily you try to avoid that when it comes to quilting, but since this is obviously something that would be hanging up on a wall, it's just one of those things that can happen with collage quilting. And it also happens just because I'm trying to sandwich these pieces together really fast and I'm not taking a bunch of care to do a serious sandwich base. So that is the way the project turned out. I think it looks pretty good. Thanks for watching the video, and it'd be great if you want to see more like this in the future. Please go ahead and like and subscribe. I'd love to read any comments about other sorts of characters that you might like to see a fabric collage done up in, and I'll see you next time. Thanks!